All right, so today we're going to deep dive into something that sounds a little obscure. Um, Pelvis Side Bend in golf swings. And get this, we're using data analysis from a real PGA pro, Henrik Jensch.
It's really interesting stuff. I think a lot of amateur golfers don't even think about this part of the swing.
Yeah, it sounds pretty technical when you first hear it, Pelvis Side Bend. So maybe we should back up for a second, just make sure everybody's on the same page here. Can you just break down, like, what exactly IS, Pelvis Side Bend?
Sure. So basically, picture like a line connecting your hip bones, right?
Okay, got it.
Pelvis side bend is the tilt of that line as you swing. Like if one hip is higher than the other.
So like when you bend over to address the ball.
Well, yeah, that's part of it, but it's not static. It changes throughout the swing.
Oh, okay. So it's not just about the initial bend. It's like how that tilt shifts and moves as you swing.
Exactly. And you know what's really cool? Jensch actually tracked the pelvic tilt of pro golfers throughout their swings. Like he mapped it out. And it makes this really fascinating pattern.
Oh, I love visuals. What kind of pattern are we talking about?
So think about this. As you start your backswing, your lead hip, the one closer to the target, dips down lower than your trail hip.
Okay.
And then as you transition into the downswing, that tilt reverses. So now the trail hip dips down, reaching its lowest point right after you hit the ball.
So it's like a constant back and forth.
It is. It's like a smooth wave, always in motion.
Hold on, a wave. You mean like an ocean wave?
Well, sort of.
All right.
Jensch actually describes this motion as a sine wave, which is kind of like, remember those graphs from math class?
Yeah, I vaguely remember them. Never thought I'd be connecting sine waves to golf swings.
Right. It's crazy how it all ties together. And the data shows that this tilt, it usually falls within a pretty specific range, like about 10 degrees in each direction.
10 degrees? I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot. Is that subtle little tilt really that important?
Oh, it's huge. Seriously, that 10-degree tilt is like the sweet spot. It's what helps you generate power and hit the ball consistently.
Wow. So it's like that tiny little tilt makes all the difference.
It really does. Think about it. That tilt helps your pelvis rotate throughout the swing. It's like the engine behind that smooth, powerful motion. And if you have too much or too little tilt, the whole system gets thrown off.
I see. So it's not just about whacking at the ball. It's like this whole chain reaction starts with that tilt in your hips.
Exactly. That tilt sets the stage for your whole swing.
So I was looking at Gensch's research, and he had this table comparing pelvis side bend in male and female pro golfers. And, like, I was kind of surprised by the results, honestly.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Like, I thought there'd be a bigger difference, you know?
Yeah, you'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But the numbers are actually pretty similar between men and women.
Yeah, exactly.
Which kind of just proves the point that good biomechanics are good biomechanics, whether you're a man or a woman.
It's like there's this underlying blueprint for a solid golf swing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter if you're a guy or a girl. Your body is kind of designed to follow that same blueprint.
Right. And you know, this whole concept of pelvic tilt, it's not just about golf. It's like fundamental to so many movements in all kinds of sports, even just everyday stuff.
Like what?
Okay, well, think about like baseball, right? Or tennis. Even just throwing a ball.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's all about rotating your body, generating power from the hips, and that rotation, well, guess what? It's influenced by pelvic tilt.
Huh. I never thought about it like that.
It's everywhere. It's all about transferring energy efficiently from the ground up through your body and out into the movement.
Okay, so the pelvis is like, what? The key to making that energy transfer happen.
It's like a fulcrum, you know?
Yeah.
A pivot point. It's so important.
Wow. Okay, so we've established that this pelvic tilt thing, it's important. But you said before that too much tilt or too little tilt, it can actually mess things up.
Right, exactly. So like if you tilt too much, either way, it can actually restrict your rotation.
Oh, how does that work?
Well, you might end up swaying too much or getting stuck in a weird position, you know, and then you can't really create that smooth, powerful swing.
It's like your body's fighting against itself instead of moving together as one unit, right?
Exactly. And then on the flip side, if you don't tilt enough, you might not generate enough power.
Ah, I see.
Your swing could become too flat or too steep. And then you end up with all these inconsistent shots.
So it's like Goldilocks. Yeah. It can't be too much or too little. It's got to be just right.
Exactly. 10 degrees, that's the sweet spot. And that's where practice comes in, right? You can train your body to find that perfect tilt.
So interesting. It's amazing how something as simple as a tilt can have such a big impact on a complex movement, like a golf swing.
It is. But that's the power of biomechanics.
So can we talk about that sine wave thing a little more? Still trying to wrap my head around that.
Sure. So when we say the pelvis moves in a sine wave pattern, We mean it's like that smooth up and down motion throughout the swing. It's not jerky, it's fluid.
Like a wave, yeah.
And that smooth motion, that's what makes the swing so powerful,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, that smooth motion is key to transferring energy efficiently from the ground up through your body and out into the club head.
It's not just about brute force. It's about, like, finesse, right?
Yeah.
Grace and precision. And that smooth, wave-like motion in the pelvis is what gives you that.
Exactly. Think about how a pro golfer swings. It looks effortless, like they're barely even trying,
Yeah.
right? Well, a lot of that is because they've mastered this pelvic motion. It's so subtle, but so powerful.
This is really making me think differently about how I move. Not just in golf, but in everything. It's like there's this whole world of complexity going on beneath the surface that we never even think about.
It's true. The human body is amazing, isn't it? So efficient.
Totally. So we were talking before about how this pelvis tilt thing, it's not just about golf, right?
Right. Anytime you rotate your body and need power, you're using it. Swing a bat, throw a ball, even walking and running.
It's funny, we started this deep dive talking about something so specific to golf. But we've ended up learning all this stuff about how our bodies work in general.
It is kind of funny how that happens, right? Like you start with something narrow and it just opens up this whole new way of understanding things.
Yeah, like you can't unsee it once you see it. It makes you think about all the other things you do during the day.
Oh, those movements.
Walking, running, even just like bending over to pick something up.
Exactly. And now that we're thinking about our pelvis, maybe we can start paying more attention to how we're moving.
And maybe even like prevent some injuries,
Yeah.
right, if we're moving in a better way.
Absolutely. I mean, the more we understand about our bodies, the better, right?
So we spent a lot of time today talking about this pelvis side bend. And I got to say, I'm kind of blown away by how much of an impact this one little thing has on the golf swing. What about you? Anything that really stood out to you as we were going through all this?
I think for me, the biggest takeaway is just how important the pelvis is. Like, you think about golf and you think about the arms and the shoulders and the club, right?
Yeah.
But the pelvis is like the unsung hero. It's the foundation for the whole swing.
Yeah, it's like we said before.
Yeah.
Everything starts with that tilt. It's like a chain reaction, right?
Exactly. And it makes you realize how interconnected the body is, you know?
I know. I'm never going to watch golf the same way again.
Right.
Just staring at everyone's hips, trying to picture that sine wave. And, it makes me wonder, like, okay, we've been talking about golf this whole time.
Right.
But do you think these same principles apply to other sports too? I mean,
Yeah.
baseball, tennis, things like that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it. Any sport where you have to rotate your body and generate power, right?
Yeah.
It's all going to come back to that pelvic tilt.
It's like we stumbled onto this, like, secret code of athletic movement or something.
Yeah. The power of the pelvis.
Well, I think that's a good place to wrap things up. Thanks so much for joining me for this deep dive into pelvis side bend. This was awesome. And to everyone listening out there, I hope you learned something new today. And the next time you're on the golf course, or even just walking down the street, think about that pelvis and that sine wave. It might just change the way you move.